And then moving on to where we are at currently, we are in the process of conducting round 2 of public engagement. This started on December 1st, 2023, and is continuing until February 29th of 2024. And we have a survey that's available on our website at wampo.org/MTP2050. Also, in addition to that, staff has attended community events and locations such as at the Lord's Diner, holiday pop-up markets in December, and a Wichita Thunder hockey game. Looking ahead, continuing on the progress, we in 2024 will do the project selection and prioritization process. We will also conduct public engagement round 3, and we'll continue to draft the plan. And then moving on into 2025, we will have our public comment period and our plan approval. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. And as you all know, we are working on compiling individual jurisdictions, transportation planning projects and prioritization with help of project selection committee in the month of March and April. So that will be part of MTP process as well. So with that, Peter, thank you, Peter.
I was here to give our bi-monthly TIP project status report. So we're gonna check in on our projects that have been awarded funding this year and look at different projects that have been awarded funding in previous years, but have not yet finished. So have list here highlighted in yellow were those ones that are programmed to receive TIP funds from WAMPO sub-allocated funds this year. So we have the Seneca and 63rd Street Bike Ped Pathway, which its anticipated let date is February 2024. Safe routes to school planning, still to be determined, that we're working on that one. Which way video wall is anticipated let date is June 2024. The Nelson Drive realignment, the anticipated let date is July 2024. April 2024. In the Oliver and Keachai intersection, the anticipated let date is July 2024. 53rd Street and Oliver Woodlawn Multi-Use Path and the multimodal facility still to be determined on their obligation and let dates. And then the West Street and I-235 MacArthur project, its anticipated let date is October of this year. On the bottom there, you can see the projects that still have yet to be completed and their progress towards using all of their obligated funds. And that is also available to you on that long sheet that's at your station out there. And then this is, we also have a map available to kind of look where all these different projects are. And then finally, on the bottom of that long sheet, you can also see the non-sub-allocated federal funds that are in the WAMPO TIP. Just there for your viewing pleasure. You can kind of see some of the other projects that are in the TIP, but weren't necessarily awarded federal funding from WAMPO, I should say. Any questions for me on the bi-monthly TIP status report? Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Let's do the next item.
Oh, certainly. So we have just an update for everyone, and I think everybody that is submitting projects already knows. So our MTP TIP call for projects, we extended the deadline to February 2nd. So just so everyone's aware and on the same page there. And then I'm gonna, hand things over to,
Thank you, Peter. And Peter, that reminds me, Peter and I have submitted for a MPO technical presentation. They accepted this is a national conference. We worked on economic development reports and all. So Peter and I would be attending that conference in the month of May, is it?
yes,
May.
It's in May.
Just to give you an update. So we have next item, Dora helping us with the transit implementation plan and automatic bike ped. You know, transit project is picking up the steam, and your input is valuable because time flows and August will come soon. So Dora, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dora Gaio, transportation planner here at WAMPO. So like Chad was saying, currently we're in the process of SRF is helping us with the regional transit implementation plan, and we really would like your guys' input if there's anything that you guys really want to see in the plan. Like he said, the deadline is August, so we really want to, make the most of this plan, make sure that all the communities have something that they want to see in the plan. If anybody has any comments or would like to speak to the project manager from the consultant side, would be more than likely to set up something with them. So, you can share your thoughts and we can have that conversation. So currently the plan is under their public engagement, and currently we're working on some dates and locations for a public meeting. We've been also at the tabling events for the MTP, having a section for this plan as well. And we have an activity where they use a board, it's a board activity. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Dora. I want to add what Dora had said. If you have any comments, feel free to, get in touch with Dora, and she can get request Bill Tro from SRF to, because really the time passes so quickly. August will come, and then they're looking to see what we want to see for the entire region. There's so many ways the Federal Transit Administration dollars can come to the region. And there's so many ways that local jurisdictions can, combine as a local match. And there's so many ways to do it. How do we get the best out of this? How do we develop those formulas? There's so much to discuss, so much to formulate and design. So your needs is one part, and that design of formula is the second part. So that's why we want to collaborate, and that's why we want to remind you that there is opportunity always. Okay. Thank you, Dora.
And then the automatic bike ped counters. So we're still currently working on the RFP. We're just making sure that we get all the things that we need in the RFP, and then that should be going to review, and then hopefully by next month we can put it out there. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, and with that, Mr. Chair, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Chad and staff. So next is the public comments time. So this is open for public to provide comments about specific items on this month's agenda or any other issues pertaining to WAMPO. Any member of the public would like to talk? Do we have anybody online? None? All right. Thank you. Next brings us to our action items. First one, A, the fiscal year 2023 through 26 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 6. Peter?
Good morning again. I'm here to talk to you about amendment number 6. So we've gone through our public review and comment period from January 6th to the 21st. We're here on the 22nd seeking TAC recommendation, and we'll be pursuing TPB final approval on February 13th. So the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 6 is available online. It's also available at the link in your packet. There is 8 total projects that require formal approval in this amendment. 3 modified projects and 5 new projects. And then we also wanted to provide notice of 2 projects that had changes related that could be accomplished with administrative adjustments, but don't require a formal approval. And then just for completeness, again, this is all on our website, wampo.org, Transportation Improvement Program. Start at the top, scroll down, and you'll see the amendments listed quite plainly to take a look if you'd like to do so. So here's a map of the different projects for the new projects, the amended projects, and you can see the ones completed or changed with administrative adjustments. And we'll go through those here real quick. So several KDOT projects. We have, I'm going to move this just a hair. There we go. Okay, so we have bridge number 132 on US 54. It had an increase in project costs to be paid with state and NHPP funds. Another KDOT projects, I-135 bridge number 46, increase in project costs to be paid with state and NHPP funds. KDOT K96 bridge number 279 on 45th Street over K96 westbound and eastbound lanes, new project. I-135 bridge number 11 on northbound K-15 to I-135 ramp over Gypsum Creek, new project. K-96 in Sedgwick County, upgrade from 4-lane to 6-lane, modified project, increase in the project costs we paid with state and NHPP funds. And then KDOT, another KDOT project, Andover Founders Parkway between Allen Street and Andover Road and Allen Street from US 54, new project. Sedgwick County, west lanes of North 119th Street west to north of Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad in the city of Mays, new project. And then finally, lead sponsor is KDOT. I said Sedgwick Counties, all the lead agencies on KDOT, but they're in Sedgwick County. West side of North 119th Street west and north of Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad in the city of Mays. That's also a new project. And you can see here detailed the local, state, and federal funding changes. And again, these are all available for your review online. Amendment 6 meets the requirements, public comment and review period, consistent with our MTP Reimagine Move 2040, fiscally constrained, adds about $15.5 million. And we had one slide less than we normally have an amendment because we didn't actually have any changes to the WAMPO suballocated federal funding in this amendment. So that brings us to our action item. So our actions are here before you. Recommend the TPP approve the FFY 2023, FFY 2026 TIP amendment as presented. Not approve the amendment as presented, or approve with specific changes. Staff recommendation is to recommend the TPP approve TIP Amendment 6 as presented.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions for Peter? If not, I'll go and make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 through 26 TIP Amendment number 6 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All approved, say aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, Peter. All right, next we'll move on to item B, the urban area boundary.
Okay, so you may recall this from last year. We were looking at approving a new urban area boundary. I'm going to give it just a little bit of refresher because I think it's been about 2 months since we looked at this with any images or maps. So specifically, the urban area boundary, the region and MPO serves must contain an urban area boundary distinguishing urban areas from rural areas. This is the current urban area boundary from 2015 and is what is currently in place. And the urban area boundary is typically revisited after the establishment of an updated census urban area by the US Census Bureau after each decennial census. So the Census Bureau, you can see the area in kind of light blue there. That is from the US Census Bureau. It's what they determined to be urban by 2020 decennial census data. But usually the urban area boundary extends just a little bit beyond that. Sorry. There we go. So the urban area boundary must fully contain the census urban area. So when the census urban area was developed for the WAMPO region, you can see in certain areas it extended past our old urban area boundary. And so leaving the urban area boundary unchanged was not an option. It needed to be readjusted. And then I want to talk about implications for funding real quick about being within or outside the urban area boundary. So surface transportation block grant funds can be used on an urban minor collector, but not a rural minor collector outside the urban area boundary. Non-suballocated transportation alternative funds from KDOT can be used outside the urban area, but not inside the urban area boundary. Whereas WAMPO suballocated TEA funds can be used anywhere in the WAMPO region. And I wanted to reiterate on this funding because I don't know if we spoke at length on this subject when we brought it up the first time, this is an important consideration, but it's not an end all be all in funding. If you happen to have a minor collector outside the urban area boundary that you have a project that you want to apply for WAMPO suballocated STBG funds, in that specific case, this would be an important thing to notice or to look at. But often, many projects, this really isn't something that's important for that kind of funding. And then additionally, for TA funds, if you're within WAMPO, WAMPO can get you, or you can apply for WAMPO TA funds anywhere within the WAMPO region. But if you're inside the urban area boundary and you would happen to have like a bike ped project that you were seeking to get transportation alternative funds, you wouldn't be eligible to receive funds from KDOT or their transportation alternative funds specifically. I guess at the end, all this, I think sometimes it might have been implied that there was more substantial changes to funding, but it's actually a much more specific to each project you're trying to submit for funding applications for. But yeah, it's definitely not an end all be all situation on the urban area boundary and the suballocated funding program. So moving on, based on everything we were talking about before, a proposed new urban area boundary was developed with input from our committees and in correspondence with our partner agencies. The proposed urban boundary was presented to TPP in November of 2023, and they had questions regarding a large extension of the UAB to Rose Hill. And you can see that on page 21 of the packet. Ultimately, the TPP approved the proposed urban area boundary, provided that WAMPO staff revisit the subject in the first quarter of 2024 to clarify the inclusion criteria. Further collaboration and review of UAB guidelines between WAMPO and partner agencies has led to the conclusion that the extension of the UAB to include Rose Hill is not reasonable at this time. And so to follow up on that promise to kind of generalize the guidelines, the FHAW they're kind of generalized below. So it must contain the census urban area, attempt to include whole municipalities, must form one contiguous shape, and should follow physical features that can be identified from the ground, such as roads and waterways. And then generally, not substantially extend the urban area boundary beyond the census urban area unless the additional area is expected to urbanize in the next 5 to 10 years. With that in mind, I just kind of wanted to take a quick look on the process and how you would develop that. So this is just a population density map that shows Wichita, Derby, Rose Hill, and the southern portions of Andover. So you start here and then going to layer on the 2015 urban area boundary, the 2020 census urban area boundary, and this would function as our starting point when developing the new urban area boundary. And then from following those guidelines, you get to this point where we attempt to make one contiguous shape, capture whole municipalities that you can kind of see there where we captured that part with Andover, extend it to easily verifiable and visible landmarks in the field like roadways and waterways, specifically roadways for this area. And we developed a boundary that looks like this, and that's that hatched in red there. And following this in a consistent pattern around WAMPO, you develop a border that is pretty well defined and doesn't extend too far from the original urban area boundary, consistent with FHWA guidelines. And we end up with this here. And again, we developed this in collaboration with our partner agencies. And it really, I think from what we're talking about, if we're trying to create a consistent set of rules for the entire WAMPO region, I think this urban area boundary does that quite well. And so that finally brings us to our action items. So we recommend the TPP approve the proposed new urban area boundary. Your action items are in front of you, sorry. So you can recommend the TPP approve the proposed new urban area boundary as presented, not approve the new UAB, recommend the TPP approve the new AB with specific changes, or recommend the TPP approve the proposed UAB, or for our staff recommendation, recommend the TPP approve the proposed new AB as presented. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Peter. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Has
Go
this
ahead.
been matched up with the current city limits of Wichita?
It's actually extends a
not-
little. Oh, sorry.
And
It
I was gonna say
extends-
not just what the UAB has, but the actual current city limits.
The UAB, it extends past the current city limits of Wichita. I'm sorry, what was that question again?
Oh, I'm
I'll go
thinking
back.
about the housing developments that have popped up around Wichita, and one that I'm aware of, and I was under the impression was put in the Wichita city limits, is right there at 119th, below MacArthur and north of K42. For example, I thought that was now in the Wichita city limits.
That
Which is the reason for the question. I'm wondering if it's incorporated all the newest developments that would have missed the census development.
I will have to look and make sure that I've got the right spot on the UAB. But I can make sure if that new development's in there. I imagine if it's anywhere close to the city limits, it will be included. Because we went pretty far beyond and we caught a lot of the municipalities and the space in between those municipalities in this current UAB. But that was, you said K42 and 119th?
Yeah, north of Clearwater, follow K42 up, next road up, and a little triangle right there is about 24 houses in that. And that's just the one that comes to mind. I drive by it daily.
That is not in the city limits of Wichita. That is in Sedgwick County.
That's in Sedgwick County?
Is it? Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions?
I had a question for staff, clarification. With, you had a slide up there about 5 to 10 year, reasonably developed within 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
Using Ridge Road as an example, we have several sand pits that are now, another one's about to get developed. That is a intermediate development. Eventually will be residential developments. So would that be considered developed now with the sand pit? Or do we have to wait for those to finish their operations, which may be 5 or 10 more years before that's considered developed?
From looking at the guidelines, if you have an industrialized area, something like that, I believe you're talking about, if it's adjacent to the urban area boundary, a lot of times they'll suggest extending it over, similar to how we would do like the areas of Spirit and those, because they don't have a lot of urbanized area on one side of them, but they're categorized within the boundary. It's something that we can, if yeah. I'm trying to look on the map to make sure
We were just talking about it just because it's about, I think right now, the proposed boundary is about a half mile off of those areas there along Ridge Road, north of 53rd.
53rd, okay. They can be, I know there's some places where we haven't, but that is something that can be included.
Yeah, I just noted because I know right now it's a sand pit, but I don't know when they will
Mhm.
be residential and how long that will take to develop. Obviously, is up to them, not us.
Yeah, if there is, from talking with our partner agencies, if there is a good reason to go back and revisit this, FHWA would consider amending it after we do this today. But for any substantial changes to this, because we really tried to make sure we created a consistent boundary that we could, present to FHWA and tell them that, we hope this won't change in the future and we've come to a consensus on it. We could change it in the future if we do get good reason. Yeah.
It was certainty another factor, Peters, being certain when it is happening is another factor.
Yes, if if you have a certain timeline or more just a concrete information, that would be something that we could put together and, change or amend it. I just really want to work with our partner agencies to come back with very concrete reasons on why we would make any further adjustments from this one.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recommend approval that TPB approve the proposed new urban area boundary without the Rose Hill extension as presented.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same side. All right, thank you. All right, next we'll move to discussion and updates. The first one is the projects obligated in fiscal year 23.
Okay, so our next one, we're going to talk about our annual listing of obligated projects. So the annual listing of obligated projects is a federally required document developed every year by WAMPO staff and contains a list of projects that had federal funds obligated for their completion in the previous federal fiscal year, which is October 1st from September to September 30th. So I imagine many of you already know this, but I thought if we're going to talk about something that lists obligated in the name, we should define it. So what is obligation? So in between a transportation project being programmed to receive federal funding in the transportation improvement program and federal funds being received for the project, the funds need to be obligated. Obligation is an administrative step after which the federal government is officially obligated to provide previously awarded or programmed funding for qualifying purposes described in the project scope. Now, some caveats about this list before we go into it. Since the annual listing of obligated projects includes all projects in the TIP that were obligated federal funding in the past federal fiscal year, a project in this list that we're going to show you may not have any dollars awarded through WAMPO suballocated federal funding programs, but will still need to be included if it had federal funds obligated from any other sources. So this is not beyond just WAMPO suballocated funding. The amounts in the annual listing of obligated projects show federal funding that has been obligated for a project in a specific fiscal year. So in our case, federal fiscal year 2023, not the total cost of the project or even the total amount of federal funds that may eventually be received. This is just what's been obligated last year. And then finally, on occasion in these reports, you'll see a project that may be completed without using all the previously obligated funds. In this case, funds may be de-obligated, which is represented by a negative amount in the report. So it's not that it was taken away or any money was taken away. It's that the project completed didn't use all the federal funds that were obligated to it. So it looks like a negative amount in the report, but that's what that is there. And then I'm going to have Dylan go through here. This is the list of those projects, and he'll give you a kind of a brief overview.
Thank you, Peter. I'm the engineering and data analyst here at WAMPO. And to reiterate what Peter said, projects could have either sub-allocated, which are highlighted in green, or non-sub-allocated funding to it. So as you can see here, the Zoo Boulevard Bridge project, the Meridian from Ford project, West Street, Harry DePawnee, and Wichita Transit Network Redesign Plan and Wichita Transit Replacement Paratransit Vehicles are all projects that have sub-allocated funding to it. And I would like to add that the projects highlighted in red or outlined in red cannot be mapped due to them being regionally based projects. And moving on to the map, as you can see, we have projects that are spread around the WAMPO area, including one near Cheney, one near Mays, one in Valley Center, and one near Derby. And as you can see, most of them are still in Wichita. And if you would like to have more information about the annual listing of obligated projects, it is on our website. As you can see here, just go under what we do, then under Transportation Improvement Program. And it is under all the amendments and all, if you scroll all the way down to the page, you'll see the annual list of obligated projects, all the reports from 2019 through 2020. And with that, that is about it on the update. I'll hand it back over to Peter for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions on our annual listing of obligated projects?
All right, see none. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item B, the MTP 2050 population projections.
Okay, so as many of you know, we've been working in collaboration with the Center for Economic Development and Business Research and JEO, or another consulting firm, to help develop a series of population projections for the local municipalities and for the WAMPO region as a whole. And so I'm repeating myself, I think, on this slide. So again, we worked with these two different consultants to develop these, and these projections were further refined by incorporating individual city growth trends identified from patterns in the decennial census data. We also shaped these projections from input from WAMPO member jurisdictions for consistency with their own individual projections and plans. And you can see on the screen in both in your packet on page 30, we have these projections. And so we try to take some, we started with the projections that we got from the Center for Economic Development and Business Research. Then we incorporated the proportional trends that individual cities within the region were following to kind of take into account some of that metropolitan area growth patterns. And then from there, we took feedback from any of our municipalities that we received over the past couple months and incorporated that for those cities. Our current plan is to bring these projections back to you on February 26th for formal recommendation to TPP. Any projections that we received from the different municipalities, we just extended what they gave us to 2050. Any questions for me? Because we do plan on trying to bring these back on the 26th. So any feedback, I'd be happy to incorporate it into these projections.
See you then. Thank you.
Very welcome. Oh, I'm so sorry. One more. And if you do have any feedback or anything there, we want to get these into our TAC packet by February 16th. So if you could get them to us a week before by February 9th, I could get them into the TAC packet. So we would have an updated list of projections for you that's actually in the packet. And I'm not just putting it on the slide for the presentation next month.
All right, thank you. So next we have Dora, item C, the 2023 bicycle and pedestrian count results.
Thank you. So you probably are wondering why we're going over this again. If you guys saw this back in November, it was brought to our attention by Alan that some of our projections seem a little high. So we went back and looked through the data, and there was just a little error in the formulas that the formula that we were using that was from years prior that just kept on getting passed down. So we went in and just fixed all those projections, and now they're updated. Nothing really changed with the top locations for the 2023 count, but obviously the numbers did a little bit. So the average daily traffic volume was Douglas and Washington was 3,528. And then for the Arkansas River Path at the Keeper of the Plains was 3,125. Sedgwick County Park on 21st Street was 2,120. Broadway and First was 1,976, and then 1,430 at Oak Park. And then here's an updated map with all the bike and ped count projections for 2023, which can also be found online. There's an interactive map that has last year's and all the years prior. And then these are all the count locations we did this last year in 2023. And this one shows the AEDT for bike and ped and the compared AEDT with the vehicle. And the ones that have a dash is because they don't have any data, or there's a screen line, or it's at a park where we can't really get that AEDT data. Any questions or comments?
I have a
Hi.
quick question. If we have a bike ped path, should it be represented if we didn't have a count? Just as on the map, essentially?
So if we didn't have a count, you said that should we even add it to the map? I'm sorry. Is that what you're
Right.
asking?
For example, in my city, we have a bike ped path through one of our parks. Of course, it's not on the map here, and it's not large enough to have warranted a study. I was wondering if it should be represented, though, as one of the available bike ped paths on the map.
We can definitely add it for this year's. Would you
Okay.
mind emailing me the location so then we can add it to the list?
Sure. I'll drop the map for you.
Thank you.
Will there be another bike count this year, or will the bike counters be used? The electric bike counters?
We are currently in discussion with that, but it kind of just depends when we get the counters. So it just depends on once the RFP is out, and then how soon we can get the counters. If we don't get them by the summer, then we'll probably most likely be doing the manual bike ped counts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess it's possible to have a combination of both, correct?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I know some cities will have them and some may not, some areas.
Yeah, definitely. It really just comes down to volunteers. If we can get those volunteers for those locations, but yeah, we can definitely do both.
Okay. Any further questions?
See, sure. What they're counting is what somebody's saying.
Absolutely. Validation and calibration is important for checking the counters. I agree, Sean.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan and Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, the grant award. Danny?
Thank you. I'm going to give an update on the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan and then some of the Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. So first, the WAMPO Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, or CSAP, was created with attention to enhancing the safety of drivers, passengers, and vulnerable road users such as bicycle users and pedestrians within the region. It was developed over a 10-month period and was shaped with stakeholder participation and public input. And on December 12th of 2023, the WAMPO CSAP was adopted by the Transportation Policy Body. The document can be viewed on our website at wampo.org/safety. Moving on to the Safe Streets and Roads for All demonstration grant. So also in mid-December of 2023, notice was received that WAMPO was awarded a federal Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A, demonstration grant in the amount of $940,000. The funds can be used for supplemental planning and demonstration activities, such as educational campaigns and before and after studies. Currently, WAMPO staff are working closely with FHWA to ensure full compliance with the grant requirements and funding rules, and we will inform participating municipalities of additional information as it becomes available. So there will be more to come on this in the future. And then also, let's talk about the Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation grant application. So with the adoption of the CSAP document in December, WAMPO can now apply for an SS4A implementation grant. These grants focus on the execution of strategies that are identified in the CSAP, which may involve major safety-related infrastructure improvements. Implementation grants are anticipated to range from $1 million to $25 million, and they are highly competitive. An application for this type of grant would include a selection of project or projects, and then it would be based on CSAP goals and public input that was received during the plan's development. It would also be supported by a demonstrated need for safety interventions, as revealed by the data in the existing conditions report or further study prior to the application submittal, and it would be consistent with at least one of the strategies described by the CSAP. So right now, WAMPO staff are working on developing an amendment to the 2024 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, that will reflect work tasks that are associated with this SS4A implementation grant and program funding to hire a consultant to assist with the application. That first amendment to the 2024 UPWP will be brought to TAC for approval next month on February 26th and to TPB for approval on March 12th. And then following the approval of that amendment, WAMPO will then issue a request for proposals for that SS4A consultant to help with the grant. Questions?
Seeing none. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a safe system approach, safer speed. Haley?
Okay, I am here. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Great. I will also turn on my camera for those. I don't know what you have there, but I'll turn it on. Okay, so thank you all again for your time in this Safe System series. Today we're going to be talking about safer speeds. The last one I have after this is going to be safer roads. So that'll be the next one that you'll hear from me. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Just going to be going over a few things today. We'll review the safe system itself, again, as it correlates to the safer speeds element. And then we'll go through some of the current practices that KDOT has and just a brief to touch on the legislature regarding speed setting. And then we'll talk about the impacts of speed to the human body, speed management strategies, and then just some related data within your guys' area. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you guys all remember seeing this and have seen it several times over the last few years, but this is the safe system approach, and the color wheel within itself is the elements, and then around the outside are the principles of the safe system approach. And as it comes to safer speeds, some of the key principles to be looking at is that responsibility is shared, safety is proactive, and redundancy is crucial. And the three icons on the left, I pulled from the FHWA Proven Safety Countermeasure list. If you haven't seen that, just a quick Google search will help you find a list of several countermeasures. These are the three that are correlated right now to speed enforcement and enhancements. So those links are all live too, if you guys do have a copy of that. But like I said, a quick Google search will get you to those proven safety countermeasures. So next slide, please. I'm just going to read this quote to you here. This is the safer speed objective through the safe system approach, which is to promote safer speeds in roadway environments through a combination of thoughtful, equitable, context-appropriate road design, targeted education, outreach campaigns, and enforcement. Next, please. And this quote here, I won't read to you, but what I wanted to highlight on there was this idea of kinetic energy. So as the quote on the screen shows, that the SSA, or the safe system approach, recognizes there's a direct link between the safe speeds and our ability to survive a crash. So put very simply, humans are unlikely to survive high-speed crashes. So adjusting those speeds can accommodate for our human injury tolerances in three different ways: by reducing the impact forces, providing additional time for drivers to stop, and to improve visibility and decision-making time. Next, please. So this is a slide from the National Roadway Safety Strategy dashboard that they have online. If you just go to transportation.gov, you'll find this here. This was filtered specifically on the safer speeds element and on their strategy here. And what this shows is just the key departmental actions to enable safer speeds. So these are the things that FHWA, NHTSA, FMCSA, they are all working towards as regards to the safer speeds element. And in alignment with the safe system approach, Achieving these safe speeds requires the multifaceted, equitable approach that leverages road design and other infrastructure interventions, speed limit setting, education, and enforcement. So those E's that we've been talking about. And the roadway design and other infrastructure factors do play a significant role in managing speeds and can deter excessive speeding behaviors from occurring in the first place. Next, please. I thought it would be best to maybe just summarize these statutes to you instead of reading them. So if you would like to go have some light reading, you can go find them. But these statutes are just the ones that give guidance on our speed limits setting in Kansas on various facility types and in different scenarios. The overall takeaway for this is that the DOT and local agencies have the authority to conduct studies and use their engineering determinations to set or change speed limits. Next. So what KDOT does for this currently is we rely heavily on traffic studies and some speed resolutions. Right now, a lot of those are going to be based on the speed distribution that we find within that study. We look at the 50th, but also the 85th percentile very often, and the speed limit and operating speed, the comparison of those. But what I do want to note is the idea of the 85th percentile is starting to change a little bit. Maybe it's not the most reliable way to set speeds because the 85th percentile does not always account for the additional considerations like the crash experience and the road characteristics and the context of the roadway itself, and then the presence of the pedestrians and the bicyclists. So this is where that context appropriate design comes into play here. And I also have found that for speed management, that drivers often underestimate their own travel speeds. At higher speeds, like 70 miles an hour, they can underestimate their speeds by 10% at those speeds and even 30% at lower speeds. So meaning that if you aren't looking at what you're actually driving, that your interpretation of your driving could be off by 10 to 30%, depending on how fast you're going, which results, of course, in higher operating speeds than the posted speed limit, which causing unsafe situations. Next, please. So when we get into the impacts of speed, we're talking about managing this kinetic energy. And so the very first part of this quote here is saying that it's critically important that those road users who are more susceptible to the severe injury are the ones that we kind of can focus on and take action with. And we're talking about managing that kinetic energy exchange. So as we all know, the faster you go, the more energy you have, it has to go somewhere. So what do we do if and when humans make mistakes, whether it's the driver itself or the vulnerable road user? How do we create an environment that is more forgiving in those scenarios and helps us transfer that energy a little bit more efficiently, not resulting in severe injuries? Next, please. So this slide here kind of shows that vulnerability for road users, specifically with those pedestrians. And you may have seen this before, but it's showing that there's a direct relationship between the speed at which a vehicle is traveling and the likelihood of surviving being hit by that vehicle. So 9 out of 10 pedestrians are likely to survive if they're hit by a vehicle traveling around 20 miles an hour. However, when you go up to closer to 60 miles an hour, your likelihood significantly decreases, and it's a 1 in 10 chance that you'll survive that crash. Next, please. And just like we saw on that previous slide, the human body is vulnerable and obviously unlikely to survive an uncushioned impact at a speed of more than 20. So even at relatively low speeds, it can kill or seriously injure a person unless the vehicle or the road environment itself accounts for that physical vulnerability of all road users. So what this chart is showing here is the further left you go on the chart, that the lower speeds at which death can occur. So like we were talking, that the 20 mile an hour of a vehicle hitting pedestrian, and then a vehicle versus vehicle head-on crash, faster speeds, the higher your fatality risk goes. Next, please. I wanted to include this this is a good visual for me as well. And I would hope it would kind of help you guys put this into perspective. But in normal driving conditions, your typical driver sees about 20 to 30 degrees outside of your field of vision directly in front of you. So this field of vision, though, can directly correlate to how fast you're going. So the faster you go, the smaller that field of vision gets, meaning that you're less, you can ingest less visually, things that either are in your peripheral view or right in front of you, there's just less time, less ability to process what's in front of you. So I think this is important to note, especially in urban areas too. So next slide, please. I just wanted to recap really quickly since we're talking about the whole human vulnerability in our VRUs. As I'm sure you may have heard, there was the federal requirement for the VRU assessment to be completed. KDOT did complete this in November of last year. And something that I want to pull out of that and tell you all was what we found, that the roadways with the highest risk to VRUs were the local roadways posted at about 30 to 35 miles an hour, or more specifically, the urban arterials. Those are kind of the roadway network that we need to focus on from what the data is showing us. And this also might be something, these recommendations listed here is something that you might consider, that was previously mentioned with your CSAP and your SS4A applications. These are the types of things, especially if you're talking demonstration grants, that if you feel you have somewhere where you want to try a speed management type, this is a good opportunity to do that and get some funding to do so. It's something that if you wanted to present to, your area and say, hey, let's try this in one location, you can see the results of it through that demonstration grant to see if that's something that you want to implement throughout your region. So next slide, please. So this example shows that applying that safe system treatment can reduce the kinetic energy and the impact of the speed of a crash to help minimize injuries. So the image on the left is showing your typical intersection where the design does not necessarily limit the driver's speed. So you feel like you can go all the way through, and so you do. So a driver will proceed through that from the fastest point from A to B. Where on the right, you see that roundabout is the design that causes that driver they have to slow down to maneuver around to get where they need to go. So it's also been noted too that speed limits can help reduce the speeds, but only when they're set with the context in mind. So again, this context appropriate setting. So for an example, some of the Vision Zero cities have set speed limits at like 20 miles an hour in urban areas where they have high ped and bike activity. So setting those speed limits, but as I had mentioned in some previous slides, we can't always just reduce the speed limit and hope that people abide by that. We all know that that's not always necessarily true. So we need to kind of rely on that design that makes that driver feel uncomfortable going at that higher speed. So what am I comfortable driving? With this roundabout is a good example that you have to slow down as you approach. You have to turn to get around, and you can't do that as fast as you can drive straight through. And I also wanted to note, you could stay here, that's fine, that according to some of the NHTSA countermeasures that work, it's shown that as much as a 3 mile an hour reduction on facilities that have 30 mile an hour operating speed can produce a reduction of 27% in injury crashes and 49% in fatality crashes. So something as little as 3 mile an hour in that operating speed can give you a huge boost in your reduction of crashes. Next. So this document here, which is linked, and again, a quick search will help you find it. This was recently published just this month. Is the Safe System Roadway Design Hierarchy. And so this is just a tool. It's a PDF document tool that characterizes the engineering and infrastructure-based countermeasures and strategies and how they align to that safe system approach. And it's broken down into 4 different tiers, as I've got listed here. So tiers 1 through 3 include the solutions to remove potential roadway conflicts and separate the vulnerable road users from the traveling vehicles, with the goal of reducing that kinetic energy if and when a crash does occur. Whereas tier 4, the countermeasures and strategies listed in there provide the critical information to the road user so that they can take an educated and they can take appropriate action in the event of a crash. Next, please. So this slide here is just a screenshot from that PDF with all of those federal highway safety countermeasures listed. The ones on the top left are the ones that I showed you before that are directly related to speed management, but there's several others that are listed in here. And then they kind of put this in a nice visual I'm a very visual person, so this is nice to see how many different boxes can you check. Are we reducing severe conflicts? Are we reducing the speeds? Are we managing that space and time between road users? So this is a nice way to kind of see how many different things you can check along those countermeasures when you implement. Next slide, please. And these are a couple of images from that document as well. So I'll just go through a few of them that I think are had some good statistics. So the top one, kind of in the top right, is the green and yellow before and after. So this was in New York City, and they installed separated bike lanes with parking lanes and a buffer for those bicycle users. And they used striping, they used signing, they used some vertical elements. So whether that's, trees or something like that to narrow up, and then some other intersection treatments. And they received a 75% reduction in bicyclist serious injuries in this scenario. And then the one on the left, this is in Golden, Colorado, and they used a variety of self-enforcing designs, including replacing some of their signals with roundabouts. They narrowed up some of the roads using center medians, and then they also restricted some left turns into businesses to protect the traffic and the VRUs in the area. So in total, the way that they measured their crash reduction here was they reduced their total crashes per month by 36%, and they reduced their injuries per month by 97% by implementing some of these strategies. And then the one on the bottom right, which I think is one of the most simplistic ones, but effective, is a raised crosswalk, with a color contrast in the middle. You'll see they kind of installed those pavers to give the color contrast. They saw a 4-mile-an-hour reduction in their 85th percentile speed by installing something like this. And this was in Massachusetts. So just a little bit of a snippet here of, they could be low, medium, high cost countermeasures, but a lot of these things can be accomplished with some pavement marking, some signing. And then, of course, I think it's also important that when you install new countermeasures, that you educate your traveling public on especially if it's something new that they've never seen before, what are the key things that they need to know? And I think that design hierarchy spreadsheet or the document that I provided gives you kind of that guidance on how to educate your road users on how and why you installed something like this. So lastly here, before we kind of wrap up, the next slide, please. I wanted to give you some information in your area. Now, granted, this was filtered by Sedgwick County, not necessarily the WAMPO area, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea of what's kind of going on in here. I used the Drive to Zero dashboard. Again, another resource. If you haven't had the chance to look, you can go to our transportation safety page on KDOT and find a link to the Drive to Zero crash dashboard. It shows currently 5 years of data, and it's showing fatal and serious injury crashes only. So what I did here is I just filtered by Sedgwick, and I wanted to summarize a couple of the stats for you. So statewide, over those 5 years, we had about 7,700 fatal and serious injury crashes. 1,300 of those were coded by law enforcement to be speed-related crashes. So those are the fatal and serious injury crashes. 422 of those were fatalities, and 1,264 of those were serious injuries. So those were the statewide speeding-related crashes. In Sedgwick County itself, we had 1,362 fatal and serious injury crashes, and 248 of those were coded as speed related. So as far as comparison to the statewide, the speeding related severe injury crashes in Sedgwick County accounted for 18%, which is about in line with the percent share of speed related crashes for the state. However, 24% of the fatalities were speed related, which is higher than the state trends. So furthermore, then one other stat was that Sedgwick County represented actually 19% of the speed relating fatalities. So again, to kind of restate that, 24% of the fatalities in Sedgwick County were speed related. So a quarter of our crashes there. And then the speed related fatalities in Sedgwick County are 19% of the state's share. So 20% of our speed related fatalities came out of Sedgwick County. So something to look at there. And then my last slide here before my contact slide is just a little plug for our Drive to Zero Coalition. So as it was previously called, was the Executive Safety Council, has been rebranded as the Drive to Zero Coalition. And this spring, we're going to be working on our SHSP update. So the Strategic Highway Safety Plan will now be renamed to be our Drive to Zero plan. And we are going to reorganize it to where our emphasis areas then merge into what we're going to call our strategy teams. So we are going to align with the safe system approach and those elements that we had there, your safer road users, safer speeds, safer roads, all those things. We will now have a team associated for each one of those. So if you are interested in joining any one of those strategy teams, please feel free to reach out to me and attend those. And you can also become a friend of the DTZ Coalition. So every time we have a DTZ meeting, you can listen in and hear what's going on with safety in KDOT and the state itself. Again, that's a multi-faceted approach. We have several executive members on that coalition. So it's good to kind of listen in and hear what's going on. So that's all that I have. I will open it up to any questions, but that last slide does have my contact information on it. So if you think of something later, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, definitely appreciate your presentation. A lot of good information in there.
Haley, thank you so much. And it's a good presentation. The slides were informative. Is it okay for us to share these slides with TAC members, Haley?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, item 6, committee and partnership updates. Nothing. All right. Next, we have number 7, other business. None. So next we have item 7, adjournment. Somebody like to adjourn tonight?
So move to adjourn.
We have a motion and
Second.
a second. All in favor of adjourning today's meeting? All right, thank you. Have a great day.